My name is Richard Gerganis, and I am the pastor of Church on the Rise here in Rocky Mount. Actually, I'm from Rocky Mount, and we moved back in early 1996 to plant Church on the Rise from Raleigh. We had lived in Raleigh 8 years. We started with about 8 people at the old YWCA. Fortunately, it was really what God had called us to do. We learned a lot that first year, grew to about 60 people, and have just continued that journey for 20 years now. We are now a multi-site church and love Rocky Mount, love Nash and Edgecombe County. We love doing stuff with other churches. We love getting outside the four walls. We love organized prayer. We love students. We love creative communication. All those things are part of our DNA. So that's a summary of our journey. One of our core values is student ministry, and it has been from day one. And what we've learned is you don't have to have a lot of bells and whistles to have a great student ministry, is what we call it. Children and student ministries, obviously it's a great hook for families. So many families come to our church and they say, we'd stop going to church. Then we had a baby, and that baby got to be 2 or 3 years old. Then we started thinking again, what made us who we were was because I grew up in church. So they reopen to that journey of being a part of a local church. Well, if they come and they find nothing for their kids or it's poor quality, you can tell us an afterthought. We're passionate about children, passionate about students, and most statistics tell us if a person has not come to know Christ personally by the age of 13 in a real personal way, it drops dramatically whether they will ever do that. The second scary statistic is I think it's probably 70+% of high school kids are leaving the church after high school. Those are the scary statistics for local churches, but it's up to us to figure that out and make it better. This is very personal for me. In about year 7 or 8 of our church, we had great growth. God's grace had touched what we were doing. The growth kind of stopped. It plateaued and for a couple of years, and we were really trying to figure that out. Then I read this book by a guy named Tom Rainer called Simple Church. And the book was transformational for me and then trickled down to our team. If you've read Simple Church, the basic premise of the book is Tom studied and his team about 400 churches in America that were growing the right way. They were making disciples. They were touching their community, the things that every local church, I think, wants to be. And the common thread in those churches was not denomination. It was not leadership style. It was not even church style. It wasn't all contemporary, all traditional. All those things varied. The common thread was all those churches had 3 or 4 things that they did very well, and that's all they did. So we really sat down and purged, and we got rid of a lot of themes and stuff that had been overlaid, ministries. We really purged and got back to the 2 or 3 things we did very well, and the church began to grow again. Just the constant evolving with communication, trying to keep the message pure, but yet always repackaging it, always trying to say, hey, how can we reach new people? How can we reach the next generation? That's a constant challenge, I think, when you want to do that. Not getting distracted, not getting off into things, keeping the vision tight, honed in, always trying to refresh the vision and keep the right people on the bus. That's really, I think, over a long period where the challenges come. We love the whole discipleship process. We have some very clear goals this year. One is to have 75 healthy small groups. Our desire is to not just create converts, but disciples. Statistics tell us now that an average churchgoer only comes once a month. So what do you do with that? Do you bow your knee to that and say, hey, we're just going to get them once a month? Do you try to get creative? And I think it takes all of it. We've added online streaming. We have hundreds that watch online now. That's good, but we don't want that to be a bowing its knee to lack of church attendance, because we believe in that. So I think it's always trying to relate to the culture, but not compromise Christ, not compromise what we know. There's certain things people have to do to grow in their faith.